that time or later is the fact that many Britons are now, basically favoring to bypass Prince Charles. Have you heard about that?
Yes, and there, I think that as long as Elizabeth is alive and able to function, then of course they will hold out as long as they can because they want to bring him, Prince William, into power at the correct time. Again, what you'll find from my research is that everything is based on time. And there's a timeline. So it's no different than the popes. There is a timeline. If you look at St. Malachi's prophecies of the popes, you understand that each one of the popes have been set up for a timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And what he prophesies, they have fallen right into place, and your next pope will be Peter the Roman. That is why Pope Benedict is the age he is because there will be a passing of the torch at a certain point in time for his death and for this man to step in.
Mm-hmm.
Just as there will be a time for William to take his role. And Charles and his mother have been very diligently working behind the scenes to make sure this happens at the right time. So once you see the timeline, especially in my research, it shows you exactly how all that will fall together, how it all ties together, and it's kind of bone-chilling, really.
When I look at a lot of this research, because I'm familiar with a lot of, things that you have been kind of laying out for us here in regards to, individual what is happening. I've not seen the connections, so to speak, in that way that you made here so prominently featured before. But the idea that I've heard, and I kind of can see that or recognize that now, is the fact that there is, again, the people in positions of power that are actually following the Book of Revelations, meaning that they're helping to play this out as a kind of prophetic theme for I guess, their own reasons or whatever. Either that they actually are, have a Christian or religious background, or they're on the other side, as you would say, of the fence. What do you think about an idea like that the Book of Revelations in that regard, either it might be prophetic or it actually might be a blueprint that is being followed?
See, I always believe that everything, is a blueprint, and that's why it was written, for us to be able to prove, prophecy to prove itself. It's just, it's really like the founding of the state of Israel after all those years,
Sure.
If you really do the research on that, the people that made that happen was not really, it was actually the Rothschilds, and it was an involvement a little bit with Hitler to
sure, yeah, of course.
Certain bloodlines out of there so he could work on the ones that were more the Hebraic. So it was set up under a whole different pretense than what some people believe. And the flag that flies over Israel right now is the as above, so below triangles. One's pointing up, one's pointing down, heaven on earth. So, even though the Bible said that all these things would happen within the same generation, all these occurrences would happen within the same generation, we're seeing that come to pass. Now, if I believe that if God had not given this revelation to John on the Isle of Patmos all those thousands of years ago, then I would be apt to say, well, maybe somebody's just kind of trying to pull it off by themselves, but too much of it's happening just like it was actually written. So I feel like that if it was not supposed to be that way, that it would not happen that way.
So, to begin to round things up here a little bit, I want to spend the last few minutes here talk a little bit about what you potentially would see coming, I guess, in 2012. You say that you have a little bit of, researching the science and technology aspect to all of this, and I can certainly see that things are going to change on a kind of an exponential level, meaning that things will be well beyond recognition if information gathering and the technological development is progressing the way it is doing now, meaning that after 2012 or a few years beyond that or whatever, things could be looking very, very differently. What do you see at that point happening?
Well, we know that there's already changes. We were talking about the droughts, here, and some of the weather that we've had and all the things we've seen, like changes, and we're gradually seeing those changes and how we're coming into what I believe was they call it the the rattling of the Pleiades. You know, in other words, you've got this serpent, which is Ouroboros, which is a part of Masonic legend about the serpent swallowing its tail.
Sure.
And we see this a lot in like zeros and things in circles that a lot of the international products are using right now. And what it means is that we're coming into an area that we know that the Mayans talked about would be a time of great trouble, and that there would be major changes going on. So that only correlates itself really back to the Bible, where it says there's going to be major changes in the sun, moon, and stars, and that men will be burned, and that they'll have sores, and that things will fall out of the sky, and asteroids and wormwood. I mean, all these things just are manifesting itself similar to what we see the Mayan prophecies actually talk about. And then there's other prophecies that are out there that mention the same types of things, and you can't say, well, it was just this one Mayan group and that's it. But you've got the Great Pyramids at Giza that actually spell out some things that people have done major research on that point to a 2012 calendar. And then you've got like I was talking about, the American Indians. They have a thing that's called the rattlesnake constellation, which is talking about Ouroboros, and it's swallowing its tail, and that when that happens, it's just going to be major changes on the earth. And then you're looking at the possibility of St. Malachi's prophecies of the popes. So we know that here we've got the Pope, and he's supposedly next to the last Pope, and how many years could he live, and at the age he is right now. So you know that there's a correlation there. And then, interesting enough, there is another correlation that I speak of in my book about the Gothic cathedrals that will line up, the 7 Gothic cathedrals that will match their equal planet and sun and moon, planet, sun, and moon, at the same time around 2019. And so you're kind of going like, okay, well, these ancient oracle sites are going to match the sky, and you've got 2012 over here, the Mayans, and you've got the Indians saying that they're going to see the same thing with events happening in the sky. And if that comes about, and you've got the prophecy of there's too many things, like we said a while ago, that cannot all be coincidences.
What specifically do you want to share with us? What cathedrals it is that are going to line up with the planets, the 7? I guess you're talking about the 7 planets of the ancient world, so to speak, the 7 lights.
What happened was, like I was telling you earlier, there was I guess it was the days before there was ever anything like the Templars, back in the time when they were talking about oracles on the ground. And these oracles were ancient oracle sites that were actually on the grids on the earth, and where you would have like underground water actually, going across them or whatever. And when people would go in or stand on those areas, that would mean that they could actually talk to another dimension, or whatever. And when they would do that, it would bring about like a change in their voice, like they were actually channeling something. And so those Gothic cathedrals that were built on those oracle sites are actually where, I guess what I'm trying to say is, they will actually be, for some reason, important at the end of time because of where they were built, and because planets are going to match. And you're like, well, why would somebody have actually done that a long, long time ago, and then that happened within 7 years of the 2012? So I kind of, in my research, I try to tell you, like, where those oracle sites were, and how they can be found, and where they were located, what oracle site they were on, and how that was an ancient oracle site, how it brought about those kinds of things. And each one of those will be able to, I guess, match perfectly. It won't be like a little bit. It's almost kind of like I mentioned in my book about where it's kind of like a forbidden archaeology. And that archaeology, we see it even in our country in Washington, D.C. And in Washington, D.C., there's actually places that have been built that actually match certain constellations in the sky.
Of course.
They like Virgo. And so all this kind of being able to match the ground to the sky goes back again to what I've been trying to say is like heaven on earth. In other words, we're saying as above, so below.
Sure.
As above, so below. Every one of those situations. And I think that is the thing that a lot of people don't realize how that has come through history and why that is, kind of so important. Like in the future, if you did not know, if you did not have a blueprint, if you weren't going by something, how would they have known that? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It can't just be by chance. It's got to be that this was a set up thing and that somebody knew all along that these things were going to be happening, because if it's so ancient like that, how would you have known that? You would not have been able to have known that. There's just no way that you could have known that future unless you had some kind of understanding of archaeology and as well as astrology.
Sure.
You wouldn't have known how to have set that stuff up, and it's going to match perfectly. So if something's going to match perfectly, I'm kind of like there had to be something a little bit more than cavemen deciding to put a oracle site down, and sometimes when you read literature it makes you think, well, there's nothing really to it because they just picked a place and they just did that, but that's not the case. It's actually a set place, and they actually called it kind of like following the Lachodorium is what they actually called it when they would walk those places, and they would say it was like a pilgrimage.
Mm-hmm.
And once you started in it, even back in the days of the Templars, they would actually do their initiation rites into that, and they would end at Rosslyn Chapel, which is there in Scotland, which is not too far from where Dolly was developed.
That's right, exactly.
And that became the top, or the what they call the head chakra, a crown chakra, and where you were supposed to be able to understand these total secrets.
So, okay, let
the cathedrals.
Let me stop you there. So you're saying, because this is interesting, you're saying that there are 7 cathedrals, and one of these, the top chakra, then is the Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland?
That is the final one, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and the other ones are spread out through Europe, or what's the location?
They're spread out through Europe. Let me see if I can find. I was looking right here. I could name them all off.
Yeah, I would love to.
They're very difficult for me to just call them off the top of my head.
Sure, no problem.
My research right here. But yes, the way I look at it is that by Rosslyn Chapel being so close to where Dolly
yeah, but that's very interesting.
I'm like, it's like amazing how that actually serves as the crown chakra.
Yeah.
When I'm looking right at everything, and I can't put my finger on the list of them. I've got it in the book here.
No problem. Take your time.
I've got so many little things written down here. I'm like,
sure, no problem. Take your time. We're no hurry.
I think I've got it right here. I wanted to be able to read them off in the succession because I talk about them kind of all through the book, but I thought I could find one that I could just read every one of them real quick, and then you would have it. Okay. According to what I have written here in my book, let me just go kind of down through it. You start at the base of the chakra at the spine on the earth, and the first one is located at the Druid Moon Oracle at Compostela, and it was beginning the search for spiritual rebirth. Then the initiative would move from there to the Mercury Oracle at Toulouse, and that was dedicated to Hermes, which, of course, I believe was Ham, a part of the gods of the Tablets of Destiny, like I was talking about, that came through the flood. And then the initiate would go to the Venus Oracle at the Cathedral of Orleans, and there he would study the universal life force. And then at Chartres Cathedral, I think so you say.
Yeah, the Chartres Cathedral, yeah, sure.
There's a crypt there, which is dedicated to the Sun Oracle. And supposedly here, this is where one could, again, when you're doing the stuff, you're getting into those oracle sites, and you're allowing the vibration to take over, okay? So you're connecting yourself from the physical world with the spiritual world.
Well, just sorry to intervene here, but just listen to the wording itself of actually when you're